Hello everyone, it's your bud. In today's video we're going to be talking about the Lantern of Iridesce, a magic item I created a few years back. Now this video is going to be a bit quick because I'm feeling pretty rough, but let's get on with this. It combines a mana storage device with the powers of the Tardis. A.K.A. the flame is bigger on the inside than the outside. Therefore, the mana stored within is much greater than it actually appears. The lantern is a mana storage device capable of containing incredible amounts of energy, lined with crystals and gems along the interior of its structure to reflect the light back in a myriad of sparkling colors and variations, as well with a crystal placed close to the flame to allow the energy to transfer to a wand or staff. Externally, the Lantern of Iridesce looks quite common. However, when you look close enough, you can see the interior lining of the lantern is covered in the small, shining gemstones. The flame itself is a physical representation of a personal plane, one that can grow endlessly to accommodate more mana or energy of any variety. And the mana can be pulled from the lantern via one of the crystals placed within the internal walls of the lantern itself. Just as you can see the Tardis from Doctor Who, and just as the outside can change appearance, this lantern shows a small, flickering flame in place of a massive accumulation of magic that can be contained in the endless space of the personal plane within. The Lantern of Iridesce has a partner weapon, able to draw upon the vast stores of mana with a corresponding crystal, allowing energy transfer between lantern and wand or staff, or maybe even ring. I will be discussing the wand and staff that connect to the Lantern of Iridesce in another video, although if this gets a lot of likes, then I'll talk about them sooner rather than later. So there's really not much to say about the Lantern of Iridesce. I have no concrete mechanics for it. I only know that the flame is the representation of mana stored within the lantern, held at bay by the enchantments and glyphs carved throughout the lantern's structure, including all the gemstones covering the lantern's interior walls, which reflect the mana back and in a sense contain and condense the mana further and further, while still adding more on top, capturing the escaping mana and reflecting and mixing in new mana. Now, I've always been a fan of health drain in video games, but I thought if you did that with mana, you would need a place to store it all. This is of course also inspired by the lanterns of the Lantern Corps of DC, or the Green Lanterns, of which I've covered the ultraviolet lanterns in another video should you be interested to learn more. The idea of an energy battery in the form of a lantern makes sense, including the version of Green Lantern from the magic-rich fantasy version of Earth in DC. So yeah, there's one with just fantasy and there's no science and stuff, it's just like a fantasy version. It's pretty cool. However, I think I came up with this concept independently from those other power-storing lantern carriers. The Lantern of Iridesce was also the idea for the personal plane of a familiar. In my Slime Makes the Best Familiar video, I mentioned the idea of this further and how a familiar with a personal plane can be very powerful. So check that one out if you want to know more. Well, there really isn't much to say about the Lantern of Iridesce except that one cannot judge anything by its looks alone in a magic world. All could be illusion, or just half of reality, or half the truth. It takes a keen eye to know such an object's true purpose. Now, iridescence is an optical phenomenon that can occur in a number of ways and is put to use in this Lantern of Iridesce in a few specific ways. The word iridesce means to shimmer or shine, to glitter or sparkle. This can be achieved in a number of ways, but can also be achieved with the type of material or with the shape. Butterfly wings, crystals, cat's eyes that reflect light back at night, and much more. Imagine a structure like a bowl. This structure allows the light to land within, then it scatters in a certain way. And when the light bounces back, it can't send all the light back exactly as it was since it is scattered, so a difference can be seen. A glitter, a shimmer, a shine, or a sparkle. Cat's eyes use this as a second layer of light in their eyes, using the iridescence to bounce light back to make their night vision even brighter. Soap bubbles iridesce, as do some feathers and some seashells, like mother of pearl. If you've ever seen a road on a rainy day, you'll see the gas or oil iridescing on top of the water in a gutter or parking lot. The word iridesce comes from the Greek word for rainbow and Latin words for having a tendency towards. Hence, iridesce means to have a tendency to be a rainbow. Now, one thing of note with iridescence is that some objects that are iridescent can have that iridescence taken away in certain scenarios. For example, a peacock feather is iridescent until it is underwater. Then it does not iridesce. But pull it from the water and it once again becomes iridescent, meaning that not only the object itself, but the atmosphere around the object is also needed to have iridescence. Now, I mentioned that iridescence can occur in a number of ways. For example, gas on water on the street is refraction, known as thin film interference. However, there's also structural coloration and diffusion. Structural coloration, like that found in the peacock's feathers, are formed by something called photonic crystals. These are what would line the interior of the lantern of Iridesce. Now, photonic crystals are crystals whose makeup changes the path of photons interacting with it, like a screen door or a fence, allowing some areas to be blocked and some areas to be open still. These photonic crystals can be created in 1, 2, or 3 dimensions, and each dimension allows for a new path of photons, creating more complex patterns. The more simple patterns can be used as such, like a screen or something. However, the more complicated 3D photonic crystals could be used to transfer data within that light in a faster computer, in a similar manner to fiber optics, sending data through light. So I had to mention the real-world aspects of iridescence, including its properties and uniqueness, such as having to do with photonic crystal. Now, imagining this knowledge being used in a magic-rich setting makes me so curious. Photonic crystals, cat's eyes, soap bubbles, and so on. The thin film interference mixed with glyph wards, spells, or magic circles could make for some unique spells. You know, whenever Doctor Strange does that thing where he makes a disc of, like, a magic circle thing appear around his hand? Well, imagine if you had 2 of those that just sort of had the thin film interference. Could you have 2 layers of magic spells? Like if Doctor Strange put his 2 fists together and they slightly overlapped, would that be iridescence of magic? It'd be kind of interesting, wouldn't it? If one can apply iridescence to their spells, they can essentially add prismatic aspects to their magic. An iridescent shield would also be quite handy, perhaps iridescing magic itself. And if the corresponding photonic crystal was placed on a shield, staff, sword, or wand, and its partner crystal placed near the lantern's flame within the lantern of Iridesce, then one could iridesce incoming attacks to siphon off mana, and then iridesce the mana more within the lantern, continuously iridescing and condensing simultaneously. So imagine if you shouted in a tunnel, you'd get an echo back. If you shout into a bowl or into a sink, or if you're talking into something and you get an echo back, that's essentially an audio form of what happens with iridescence. So iridescence, instead of an echo, iridescence is light echoing back in a sense. So if you imagine a flame within a lantern, and the lantern is covered in crystals on the interior, if you were echoing, but the walls of... So imagine if you were in a tunnel, and then every time you said something, it echoed back. However, if the walls of the tunnel were covered in speakers, and they not only echoed back, but they responded with louder and added in more sounds, that's very much how this lantern of Iridesce works. It has a flame in the center, and then it's completely surrounded by all of this crystal and everything that not only reflects, but it condenses and it iridesces back. So imagine if you're in a tunnel and you make a sound and you hear an echo. Imagine that, but with mana, and then the mana iridesces and condenses into this flame, and the flame itself in the center acts very much like the Tardis, where it could be the smallest flame you've ever seen, but inside of that flame is a galaxy size. Just like the Tardis, it's larger inside the flame than it is outside the flame. So I've always loved crystal magic, and photonic crystal just sounds cool, and some of the things that I find most beautiful in this world are things with the attribute of iridescence. So that's why I think that iridescence magic or photonic crystal magic are where it's at. Well, thanks for watching this video, everyone. I have no idea what art I'm going to use, and I have no idea if I got my point across at all. As I said, I'm feeling pretty awful today, so I just had a little bit of time to make a quick script. Hopefully you understand that this thing, yeah, the best way I can describe it is if you make an echo in a tunnel and you hear the echo back, imagine that happening where the walls of the tunnel are the walls of the internal lantern. The person creating the echo is the flame, and so the flame is filled with mana. It creates mana that then shines as light, but then is iridesced back towards it and condensed further and further and further. So yeah, hopefully you understand the concept of this, and hopefully you enjoyed my crazy idea and its unique attributes. If you enjoyed learning about the Lantern of Iridesce, then please leave this video a like. A like helps me to decide my future content, especially if you want to see the weapons that go on this or rely on this mana battery to work. So subscribe for daily videos. I make at least one video every single day, and leave any questions or suggestions in the comments below, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.